Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to take a look at the Magicka Sorcerer PvE build for Dragonbone's DLC. This is a non-pet build. However, I also do have a pet-specific build. You'll find the link in the description. And I also do have a written guide in case you want to read through it. Also, link in description. Now, just quickly, let's go over the stats. As you can see, we have a lot of Magicka recovery, which is needed. We almost have a full light attack rotation. A lot of max Magicka health is decent, and yeah, stamina doesn't really matter. And now this is with the spell damage buffed, but it will go even higher if we use a weapon damage enchantment. This is a dungeon and trials build, so you want to make sure to use the apprentice Wonderstone to boost your spell damage. However, keep in mind, if you don't have a lot of spell penetration, like through debuffs from your tanks or other people, you might want to change it to the lower Wonderstone. Just keep that in mind. In terms of buff food, we need to use the Witch Mother's Potent Brew to be able to sustain a light attack rotation, and we are using the Essence of Spell Power Potions. In terms of race, I recommend being a high elf, because we have quite a mix of like shock and fire attacks. So elemental talent is really nice, so you get 4% flame, shock and frost damage. However, like a dark elf or for example a Breton also works. Gift of Magnus, 10% more max Magicka and 9% Magicka recovery, which is also nice because we really need a lot of Magicka recovery. In terms of gear, keep in mind this is just a suggestion. You can technically run whatever you want, but some of the sets are better than others. Just keep that in mind. I will upload more videos in the future, so make sure to not forget to subscribe. Now with Dragonbones, so there is basically two choices in terms of your like main 5 set piece. You either can run Mechanical Acuity or Julianos. However, I found after doing quite a lot of tests that the Mechanical Acuity set outperforms Julianos in basically most situations. Not by a lot, but maybe like 1 to 3k DPS difference, depending on how many how much the uptime of the proc actually is. But it's definitely worth going for it. So you want to make sure to have 5 of that. Keep in mind, as you can see, make sure to have all divines traits. And I have Magicka enchants on all the set pieces except the chest. The reason why I run a health enchant here is because you see we only have 16.3k health. So with Eben we will get to like 17.4k, but not more. So you really want to make sure to have 1 health glyph here. You can also adjust your attributes if you want to, but if we don't have a health glyph, we really would drop to like 15k, like 15.2k health, and that's just a little bit too low. Then make sure to have a heavy piece, a medium, and then 5 light pieces. Because of the Undaunted passive here, so you get 6% more max resources, otherwise your health will even be lower. Another thing to mention is make sure to not forget Juggernaut. This will give you a little bit more health because we wear 1 heavy piece, and if you want to use those 2 as well, go for it. That about this set. Then we have Ilembris here, still the best set for a ranged setup. You could run Valkin if you want to, but I do think Ilembris is better, especially with the setup that we are running with the Asylum stuff, the Inferno one. We'll get to that in a second. In case for dungeons, or like if you actually have a melee spot in trials, you can use Zaan. This is a very powerful set as long as you're in melee range. It will do way more damage than Ilembris, but you need to be in melee range. So most of the times you're a ranged setup, so you probably will not be close enough. That's why the main choice will still be Ilembris. Just in case your range, like on a melee spot or in dungeons, you can definitely go for Zaan. This is pure single target, and this can also be AoE. Basically has a 4 meter radius. Then in terms of jewelry, You can run Moon Dancer or Willpower. The difference is basically zero. Some prefer Willpower, some Moon Dancer, but like it doesn't really matter that much. If you do have purple Moon Dancer or blue Moon Dancer only, then definitely use Willpower. But otherwise just stick to your Moon Dancer. Now in terms of weapons, on the back bar you want to make sure to have a Maelstrom Lightning Staff, Nirnhond with a weapon damage enchantment. Now a lot of you might think, why run Lightning? Because of balance is getting nerfed. Yes, that's true, but I do think it's still important to have a few Lightning blockades in a raid. Because you will lose more time on trash fights than on boss fights. Most people don't realize that. So it's still worth having shock staves. At least a few, at least on trash. And on a Zork, you will lose the least damage, because like I showed you, we have the racial passive here, 4% shock damage. And we also have stuff like energized, we get more shock damage. So we kinda lose the least damage out of all the setups when we use a shock stuff. Overall, the group DPS will be higher. If you don't like it, go for a fire stuff, up to you. Then, front bar, I really recommend having a perfected Asylum stuff. It will increase your DPS by quite a lot. We are using a light attack rotation, so we will use force pulls quite a lot. So, in case you only have an imperfect version, it's not the world's end. But then, obviously, a perfected would be better. Make sure to get into the weekly Asylum runs, and then, with luck, you will get one. Make sure this is infused and place an Absorb Magic enchant here. First off, this also helps with sustain a lot. You will notice you barely have issues with sustain, especially if you have access to bubbles. Then we don't necessarily need a shock or a fire enchant, because the status effects will proc from the Asylum stuff. That's kind of the idea behind. It actually synergizes really well. Now the Asylum stuff, as you can see, every second cast of Force Shock will apply Burning, Concussion and Chilled. So Burning and Concussion do quite a lot of damage, and Chilled, it doesn't really matter. It's nice to have. In terms of CP, 40 Thaumaturge, it's not worth it anymore putting 75 points here, at least not for this setup. On most bosses, off balance will be more or less around 25-20%, that's it. So we don't benefit enough from here, because we have quite a lot of direct damage abilities actually. Mastered Arms will benefit us way more, so 48 here. 56, 64 and 32. You also want to put a few, enough points into Elfborn because of mechanical acuity. Because we will have quite a lot of crits. 36 Shadow Word, 37 Tumbling, then 49 Tenacity, and 76 Arcanism. Make sure to have 76 points here, because we are basically a full light attack build, so we really need that extra Magicka recovery. 42 Warlord. Then I have 20 points in Bastion to increase the shield size. 49, 49, 48, and 8 here and 66 Ironclad. If you want, you can play around here with the blue CP, but I really recommend having enough points in Master at Arms and Elfborn, definitely. In terms of skills, now let me quickly go through it. First, the passives. Just make sure to have all your class passives, all of those, then destruction stuff, light armor, and like I said, the first 3 heavy armor pieces. If you want, you can be a vampire. If you're stage 2 or higher, you get 10% extra magic recovery, which is nice. And if you're stage 3 or higher, you also get damage mitigation. But just keep in mind, if you're a vampire stage 2 or more, you will get increased fire damage. So make sure to turn down the vampire stage to 1 if there's a lot of fire damage. Otherwise you will get almost one shot. Fighter skill, mage skill, undaunted, make sure to have all of those. racials obviously, and then also medicinal use in alchemy. This is a very important passive. In terms of skills, the setup is quite simple. I mean, front bar, we're using a fire staff. We have crystal fragments here and force pulls. Now that's the reason why we basically use a fire staff. As you know, ancient knowledge. Flame staff increases your damage done with single target abilities by 8%. So those two damage types will get way more damage, plus other stuff like status effects. If they're single target, will also get more damage. Then we have Mage's Wrath here, our execute. On the back bar, we're running Blockade of Storms. Like I said, I'm running a shock staff on the back bar. If you want, you could run a fire, up to you. Liquid Lightning and Haunting Curse. Now, Haunting Curse is actually also nice. It lasts 12 seconds. So, like, we only need to cast it every second rotation. You will find the full rotation of this build on my website. Like I said, link in the description. Then Harness Magicka. Now the reason why I run Harness Magicka over a shield like Hardened Ward or Empowered Ward, because when we look, we get the 15k shield with Harness Magicka. On Hardened Ward, you get the 20k shield. But do you really need it? Not necessarily. But Harness Magicka has one much better perk attached to it. So you see, while active up to 3 times when spell damage is absorbed, you restore 1.2k Magicka. So this will help with sustain even more. Most other builds run around with Harness Magicka, so I also think it's a good choice to actually do that on a Sorc. Just to increase our sustain again and guarantee a full light attack rotation. Then Bound Edges, 8% more max Magicka. You need to be slotted on both bars and Inner Light on the front bar to increase our Magicka by another 7%. 5% from the skill itself. And when we look here, increases your max Magicka and Magicka recovery by 2%. In terms of ultimate, on the front bar we have Shooting Star. We don't necessarily use this ability, it's just nice to have, because like I said, 2% more max Magicka and Magicka recovery. Then on the back bar you want to make sure to run Thunderous Rage. It's the strongest available ultimate and it does so much AoE damage on top of that. Plus you can see, it only costs 213 ultimate. Usually it costs 250, but because we have the Power Stone passive, we get 15% ultimate cost reduction, so this is actually really powerful. And because this ultimate is so expensive, we get so much cost reduction on this. So it's really, really strong. Another option that you have, if you don't want to slot in the light, even though I recommend it, what you actually can do is you also could run like Boundless Storm, for example. First off, it increases your resistances, so you might die less. Gives you speed buff, and it also does damage. But then I still recommend running Inner Light, because you have to be ranged on most fights anyway, plus it will be a little bit more damage. Then again, adjust the build to your needs. This is just like the suggestions I have. That's more or less it. If you do have any questions, ask me in the comment section below. Make sure to not forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. Cheers.